recommendations. The report shows that we closed a recommendation since our last follow-up report to Audit Committee, and we've closed 2 additional recommendations this week, which are not reflected in this report, but will be included in the next one. The recommendations we closed addressed risks and led to improvements related to the Affordable Housing Investment Program grants and below-market sales of land, civic agency governance, enterprise risk management resourcing, the development and delivery of equitable recreation programming, the use of resident feedback during the neighborhood renewal process, and training for users of AREBA, the city's procurement system. At this point, I believe Sarah has some comments as well, and after that, we'll be happy to answer whatever questions we can.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this update. I'm Sarah Nichols. I'm acting city manager this week, and I'm happy to provide some insight on our progress. We continue to work internally to improve our response to audit recommendations. We receive updates on new audit recommendations on a regular basis. 30 recommendations are not due yet, but are on target to meet their due dates. As the city auditor noted, we've implemented and closed a number of recommendations. We have 5 overdue recommendations, but we're working to resolve, and we're on track to meet the revised due dates. We've closed 8 items since last dashboard report, and we've closed 15 recommendations to date in 2026. That's quite a few considering we closed 37 last year. 70% of recommendations due to date in 2026 were closed on time, which is a bit lower than last time, but still close to our overall goal of 75% over the whole year. We're also working on recommendations to update guiding documents, tracking objectives, quality review processes, assessment, and evaluation. We're committed to improving our processes and ensuring consistency and accountability. I'd like to thank the Office of the City Auditor and Audit Committee for their guidance on these recommendations. Together, we continue to improve how we deliver programs and service to Edmontonians. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very brief presentation. If anybody would like to jump on and ask questions, probably starting with Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have too many questions, but I did want to go to the overdue recommendation on the historic resource management for 2 reasons. But first, I don't remember, it says that it was in 2024, Urban Planning Committee directed the project scope be narrowed. And can you point me to that report? And yeah.
We have Eric Backstrom online.
Yeah, hi Councillor Rutherford, Eric Backstrom from UPE. I don't have the report number off the top of my head, but yeah, just in terms of the chronology there, the audit of the heritage program was November, December 2021. Yeah. And then there was basically, there's an attempt to try to find resources to do it. In 2024, we sent a report. Basically, we had sought a service package and it wasn't funded. And so in 2024, we brought a report back saying we could do the heritage, update these heritage program documents just paid for through the heritage resources reserve. And that's what that report said. It basically said we would be narrowing the scope a little bit. It wouldn't be as broad as we had been initially thinking.
I think I would like to see the service package that would have come to a budget adjustment and the report, because neither of these are things that I'm recalling right now, and especially that were pointed to in terms of directly linked to an audit recommendation.
I think we can follow up with a memo on that.
Yeah, I'd like that, because I think, and I want to make sure that that report was explicit too, that this was changing the scope of an auditor's recommendation to the Urban Planning Committee.
I'll just say it wasn't changing the scope of the audit of the auditors. It was basically just how we would do the strategy. And I'll just say, like, the heritage spaces strategy is mostly done. The revised due date is June 30th, and we're tracking to be done by then.
Yeah, I'm not going to belabor to try to change scope or to revisit. I think there's a potential lesson learned here about, like, again, as somebody that's on audit committee that's championed in the last term, making sure it was clear when there was a service package that was linked to an audit recommendation. I'm concerned that I missed both of these, and So I just want to look at them for what can we be doing to either A, make it more explicit, or like what happened there as my own self-audit, if you will, if that makes sense. So I'm not trying to change the scope at the last minute, Mr. Backstrom. Don't worry. Okay, thank you for that. And then my second question, it actually came out of Infrastructure Committee the other day, but I'm wondering if I need to do a motion on it. Our asset management on historically designated resources. So obviously we were talking about the high-level bridge, and then the conversation came to that when it's something is historically designated and is a municipal resource, we don't actually have commensurate funds to make sure that they're maintained or renewed at their ideal investment level. Was kind of the gist of what came out of that conversation. And I just was wondering if there should be, and maybe this is more to the city auditors, if there could be consideration for an audit of that kind around the renewal of historically designated municipal resources in a future work plan. So do you need a motion to consider that, or will that be able to be considered?
We can add it into our annual planning process, and then we'll go through our risk assessment process and see sort of where it lands. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say it may be one of several competing priorities in terms of our overall asset management. And so I would just encourage council to understand that there may be financial implications and significant trade-offs when we look at our overall magnitude of the assets that we own.
Absolutely. I just think we shouldn't be designating things municipal historic resources in a bylaw if we can't actually maintain them. So I think there is something to that. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madamombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several questions. So I'll start with the administration. From the 75% target you mentioned, completion target, I want to understand if at the same time you have identified any themes or recurring root causes, across overdue recommendations as well. The themes that are not enabling you to meet the targeted 75% completion target.
We always work to implement recommendations of the city auditor, and to do that, I think when we look at some of the ones that haven't been implemented yet, it's sometimes around that there's a broader budget ask or there's a bigger project at play. And so I don't know if any of our folks on the call want to add any more details, but I think it's where we move as quickly as we can on the ones that we can implement right away, and then we monitor and develop a plan to implement the ones that are going to take more time.
Okay. From the city auditor side, on the noted 70% completion level that you have achieved, how does it compare to prior periods, and also how does it compare to similar cities?
So in 2024, at around this point in time, we had a 47% closure rate. And then in 2025, we had an 82% closure rate. So 70% is kind of right in the middle of that. Just for a little bit of additional context, one of the recommendations that was closed was 13 days after the due date. So it didn't make it into the numerator side of that calculation, but it was quite close. As well, one of the recommendations we closed this week was closed on time. So if you were to factor those two in, then we would be closer to 83%.
Okay, thank you for that. So when you look at the revised dates from the audit side, do you assess any systemic issues that are resulting in the request from management to revise the completion dates as well?
point of privilege.
Yes, can you hear there, Councillor Principe?
If someone was speaking, I can't hear them online.
Oh, can we try closer or another one?
Apologies for that. Is that better now?
Yes, I can hear now. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Not sure where I dropped off. The 5 overdue recommendations, just to provide a little additional context. One of them actually has now been closed. 2 of them are framed out. We're just waiting to see evidence of them being implemented. So those are the 2 taxation assessment and collection systems ones. Historic resource management kind of already was discussed. And then I believe the fraud risk management one is waiting for some of the enterprise risk management related work to be done as well.
So and on that enterprise risk management one, from the audit side, do you see any impact on the overall ERM maturity roadmap?
This is Sarah Clausen. I can answer that question about the maturity roadmap. So there could be, with one of the recommendations was to hire a fraud or a risk expert, which we did, but that position didn't, they left shortly after, unfortunately, so we're rehiring. We have 4 deadlines at the end of December. We're on track right now, but as we get closer, we'll let you know more. But currently, everything's on track.
Okay. And then from the audit side, do you see any issues?
No, at the moment we don't see any issues. We've been in close contact with Ms. Clausen on the developments. They have dedicated some resources there, and I'm also a member on the risk committee, so I can keep track and hear information every month, so we're comfortable.
Okay, yeah, because it was more to understand if it's impacting your overall internal audit long-term plan as well.
We don't see any impacts right now.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. So your summary shows that there's, is it 6 that are more than 2 years that haven't been closed yet? But when I go through the list of the ones outstanding that are overdue, I don't see any over 2 years.
So these ones had quite long due dates set because of the amount of work that had to be done for them. So that's why some might not be due yet, even if they've been made 2 years ago.
Okay, so it's not that they're overdue 2 years. Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that for me. And Jason, you'd said that with the recommendations that are completed, but you're still waiting to see implementation of those. Is that standard then? That it's not just they tell you that it's done? What's the follow-up?
It's something that I think through Audit Committee sort of soft guidance a couple of years ago, we've started making sure that we've actually see evidence of it being in use as opposed to just designed out.
Okay, so that and seeing that there's no other risks maybe as a result of some of the solutions. Okay.
Yeah, does it address the initial risk that we identified that gave rise to the recommendation?
Okay, and doesn't create additional risk.
I don't think we've encountered that in the past, but if we did, then yeah, we would make note of it.
Okay, all right, great. That's all I have. Thank you for that clarity.
All right, going on to a second round of questions. Going over to Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about one of the recommendations that was completed around the affordable housing funding decisions. So it says in the auditor's report that this recommendation was closed and that the social development branch created guidelines for the disposition of city-owned land at below market value. I was just wondering if we could get an update from the department on what those guidelines are and what they developed, and how that interplays with ultimately council's decision-making authority.
Yes, we can do a follow-up, but I'll see if anyone from Community Services is on the call. I don't think we have anyone from Community Services, so we will provide a follow-up to council on that item.
Okay, yeah, and I would say in the future, if people have a closed recommendation, that the branch should be represented at Audit Committee. I think that's an oversight that we don't want to see in the future. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Manamombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have questions centered around the subject that was made in private, so how do we proceed with that?
Yeah, you would move to go in private?
Yeah.
Would you like to do that?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay. Subject, yeah, do we have all that? I don't have it. Clerk is just preparing.
And sorry, what was your questions were pertaining to what?
The cybersecurity program.
Section 29.
Awesome. Can we get that on the board? Awesome. Would you, Mr. Manamombe, would you like to read that out?
Yes, I will. It's moving the motion that the Community and Public Services Committee meet in private pursuant to sections 20. I think it's supposed to be the Audit Committee, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of the Access to Information Act, you know, for discussion of item 9.1, you know, so Audit Committee is the correction that I have there.
Thank you. We'll make that change to the correct committee.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions, or let's go right to the vote?
7172.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Mayor Knack.
I vote a yes, so thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Madam. Oh, thank you. We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That carries 7-0, so we'll give a minute to close the
We are back in public.
Excellent, thanks. Any further, anybody else want to give a minute to book on again for questions? And I think that's everything. So that was just a report for information. So nothing to vote on and approve. So thanks to the delegation, and we'll go on to 7374. I'll give a moment for people to swap chairs. And whenever the delegation is ready to present, you're good to go. Yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thanks. The Building Asset Inventory System Data Analytics Audit was project managed by Acting Deputy City Auditor Leslie Glasbeek. It was led by Data Science Manager Alfred Apia, and it was supported by data scientist Jasmine Zip, who's also with us today. We would also like to thank the management and staff of the Real Estate and Land Development Branch for their cooperation and support during this audit. Leslie is now going to do the rest of the presentation.
All right, thank you, Jason. A data analytic audit takes a different approach than a traditional audit. While traditional audits incorporate data analysis alongside other testing methods, data analytics audits focus on testing the effectiveness of specific controls using available data. The objective of this audit was to use data analytics to assess the effectiveness of access control and the accuracy, completeness, and reliability of the city's building asset inventory system known as TRIREGA. We tested the following 3 key controls. First, access to the building asset inventory data is restricted to relevant information and employees with a valid business need. Second, data in the building asset inventory management system is accurate and has all relevant fields. And finally, data in the building asset inventory management system is trustworthy and up-to-date, meaning it matches other city records and shows regular activity to prove the asset actually exists and is being managed. Overall, we found that the real estate branch has not met the objective of ensuring the effectiveness of access controls and the accuracy, completeness, and reliability of the city's building asset inventory system. Next slide, please. We found that some users are able to both initiate and approve transactions. We also found that access is not restricted to employees with a relevant business need. Implementing strict access controls and segregating duties will mitigate the risk of unauthorized changes, data integrity issues, and inappropriate data access. Our testing also found accuracy and completeness issues in TRIREGA. The system lacks clear scope and as a result includes data on many non-buildings. Information such as replacement values and asset condition ratings are tracked inconsistently and is present for some non-city owned buildings but absent for others. In addition, some building and lease records are missing information. We also found reliability issues in the replacement value as they are not consistently updated. We made 2 recommendations shown on the screen to address these findings. Implementing strict access controls and segregation duties will mitigate the risk of unauthorized changes, data integrity issues, and inappropriate data access. Implementing a governance standard to clarify what belongs in the system and the specific data requirements for each asset type in the system will help reduce the risk of system clutter and improve the reliability of the system as the source of truth for building and lease information. At this point, I believe administration has some common sense as well, after which we will be happy to answer whatever questions we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that real estate is now part of infrastructure services, and that occurred in April, so that's why we're here today. I'll turn it over to Chris and Eugene.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, members of Audit Committee. My name is Chris Hodgson, and I'm the branch manager of the Real Estate and Land Development Branch, as Sarah mentioned, in Infrastructure Services. I'm here today to present administration's response to the Office of the City Auditor's report on the Building Assets Inventory System Data Analytics Audit. The audit, completed in early 2026, focused on assessing access controls and data integrity within the city's Building Asset Inventory System, TRIREGA. Overall, the audit found that while the Real Estate and Land Development Branch partially met the control objectives related to data access and data reliability, it did not meet the objective for accurate and complete data. The key underlying issue identified was a lack of clarity about which assets belonged in the inventory system and the specific data to be recorded for each asset type. The Office of the City Auditor presented 2 formal recommendations to address these findings. The first is to implement a formal access management plan to restrict access to users with a relevant business need and improve segregation of duties. The second is to develop and implement a formal data governance standard for the system, which must clearly define asset inclusion criteria, specific data requirements for each asset type, update protocols, and roles and responsibilities for data management. Administration fully accepts both of the auditor's recommendations. We are committed to a 2-phase implementation schedule and will utilize existing resources to complete this work. Recommendation 1, regarding the implementation of a formal access management plan, is scheduled for completion by August 31st, 2026. The more rigorous work of developing and implementing the formal data governance standard for recommendation 2 is targeted for completion by the end of 2026. Completing these actions will ensure the accuracy, completeness, and reliability of the building asset inventory system, which is crucial for managing and maintaining city assets and supporting infrastructure investment decisions. I'd like to finish by thanking the team at the Office of the City Auditor for their collaborative work on this initiative, and we would be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Please click on if you have any questions for the delegation here, and we'll start with Councillor Wright, who chose this item.
Thank you very much. So did the audit at all focus on the adequacy of the system?
The audit did not ask the question about the adequacy of the system. We looked at the data in the system.
Just the data within it. Okay, so no, okay. This then, I guess, to administration, is it an adequate system, or is this just another one of our old legacy systems, standalone, that don't integrate with our other old legacy systems?
Yeah, Councillor Wright, I would say it is a useful tool for us in administration. We are looking at what the future holds for the systems that manage that in the future. That is more related to sunsetting around some of the technical support requirements within TRIREGA itself. So we'll be developing strategies, but I think that the learnings from what was brought forward by the auditor in this report can be applied to any kind of asset management data that we look at moving forward. So again, for us, it's a useful tool.
Okay, because I think in the report that it does talk about other systems that they don't integrate. Do you need that?
Certainly, it is always useful when our systems do integrate and talk to each other. So again, if in the future we pivot from this system, we would look for solutions that maximize that efficiency for the city.
Okay, and this isn't one of the ones with Enterprise Commons being considered?
No, not currently.
Okay. And, okay, so I guess my biggest concern then is what decisions has council made based on some of these inaccuracies? Like, are we talking like the infrastructure gap reports?
So Councillor, again, I would focus more on the fact of the data within the system rather than the data that the city holds as a whole. So there could be data elements that are tracked outside of the system. What the auditors found here is that there's inconsistency in terms of the data that we actually enter into the system. In some cases, I'll use an example. For building condition assessments, there are properties that are third-party owned on city land. And so for those types of properties, because they are owned by another entity, we might not have access to building condition assessments for those properties.
And with example, community league building?
I wouldn't.
No? Okay.
Wouldn't use community leagues, but there are certainly circumstances where there are land leases. If we have access to the information, it's loaded onto the system. But if we don't have access into to the information, it's not. And I think what the auditor's recommendation is that we should have formal rules around what information goes into the system and what information doesn't.
And what are the rules of what we do with that information?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. So I guess maybe I'll ask the question again. So is there information contained in the system that was either incomplete or inaccurate that was provided to council for council to make?
I don't think that's a concern, Councillor. Right?
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that's all I have.
Mr. Burrows?
One really quick question. Is the issue that the system, Tririga, doesn't have all of the information, or that the system can't take all of the information? Is it a change in procedure to get the data, the information into it, or do we have to change the system to be able to take it?
I believe it's more of the first. So process and protocol around ensuring that we're consistent in the information that goes into the system. Not so much that the system itself cannot accept that information.
So there's no need to reconfigure the system, change the system, update kind of an aging system. It works as it is if we change the procedure to get the data in.
Yeah, no, and I think when you're talking about missing data, it's the data that wasn't available to the team. And so when we talk about 244 building condition assessments missing, 144 of those were actually from not-for-profit housing providers on city land that we don't have access to that information. And so if the information is available, it can be housed within the data system right now, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, yeah, I can take the chair, although
there's
nobody else on the board. So, perfect timing. Well, since there's no, there we go. Mr. Matabambe does have questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to come back to the accuracy of the information again, because I'm trying to understand if there are any downstream risks that are arising from inaccurate or incomplete information in the Tririga system.
It might actually be a question better answered by our auditors. I believe that with the information that we have within the system and the items that are tracked off system, that risk is managed. But I would leave some room for comment from our colleagues with the auditors as well.
So some of the information in Tririga originates somewhere else, and Tririga is more the point of bringing some pieces of information together. For example, the condition rating assessment is captured somewhere else and then moved into Tririga to have a kind of a one point. We are not too concerned with those. The findings around reliability for the replacement value were known, and they are a starting point for example, for facility maintenance, but they're a starting point for their planning. But the impact, we think, is not major because of the known kind of like issues with that. The question becomes more around should the replacement value for certain assets even be in Tririga? Should the condition asset rating for certain assets even be in Tririga, or should certain assets even be in Tririga? A lot of our findings were around that, for not to use resources for information that's not needed, and focus on the information that is needed and where it's coming from. We've talked to risk management. They have good processes in place that they don't rely on this replacement value. They have their own processes. Same for information in SAP. From a financial perspective, that is not reliant on the information that was in Tri-Riga.
Okay, so just to confirm, there is no impact on, the financial statements per se, is there?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Parmar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question regarding whether or not we actually need Tri-Riga if we have other infrastructure IT solutions. I'm just wondering if it's a duplication or if we could, if there's an amalgamation there, because it looks like we are double entering into a couple of systems.
So, Councillor Parmar, that is part of the question that the audit, I believe, was trying to address. Is, are there elements within Tri-Riga that are inefficiently being assembled within that system? The system itself is useful, and there are elements that aren't talked about today that are actively used by team members across the city. The ones that are specific to the audit question, though, that's really the discussion around, are these specific data points, are they correctly being or efficiently being entered into the system, or are they captured in other areas, and is it a redundancy that the city shouldn't be pursuing? And Mr. Giorfi wants to add as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the Tri-Riga system is primarily a lease administration and tracking system, and so it allows all of our lease administrators to understand lease deadlines, lease payments, allows for FMS to understand when and who's responsible for maintenance, and so whether they need to do maintenance calls to some of our city assets or some of the leased assets. And so the other additional building information that's in there, again, as Chris mentioned, we need to understand if we need to track that there or it needs to be tracked somewhere else. So, but it's the fundamental use of Tri-Riga for lease administration is really important and isn't duplicated by any other system in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
I will. Councillor Parmar did ask the question. I was the burning question I was going to ask, but I just want to follow up on that. So, tracking and entering just sort of random fields with what information we might or might not have, is this just a make work project? And is that being assessed as to what are the mandatory fields that we need?
Councillor Wright, that was the exact audit finding, was that in certain circumstances there may be data fields that we're tracking that aren't necessary to be tracked within that system, and the recommendation is that we formalize protocol and process around those. And so that's the work that we will be undertaking as a result of the audit.
Okay, and that's going to be done by the end of the year, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Any budget implications that you foresee?
Councillor Wright, we will be able to do this within existing resources.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else on the board for questions, and similar to the other items, these are information reports, so that means these items are complete. And 9.1 was dealt with as part of the beginning of the motion, or the beginning of the meeting. Therefore, I'll do a check to see if there are any notices of motion and motions without customary notice. Not seeing or hearing any, we are adjourned at 10:24. Thanks, everyone.